Hello and welcome to Countdown to Power with me, Graeme Pryce. Never in the field of human endeavour was so much fucked up by so few in such a short period of time. It reminds me of something that. But it could easily apply to the whole 14 years of the Conservative Party's time spent governing the UK. However, for me, and probably the majority of you, I'm sure it hasn't felt anything like a short period of time. If you imagine the whole tenure of the Conservative Party as a big sweaty left breast on a very ugly fat lady in the summer, then obviously Boris Johnson is the nipple, but Liz Truss would be the boob sweat in the crack. She's glistening with pointlessness, easily wiped away, and a bit more to the right. The last few years have given us some very stark choices, haven't they? A Hobson's choice of sheer political twattery that will haunt future political commentators for decades to come. A question that many will still feel compelled to ask, even when the Conservative Party's been ground to dust and is long gone, hopefully in November. That question is, who was the shittest Prime Minister of all time? Was it Ballbag Johnson or was it Thick Lizzie? Well, despite my probably notorious hatred for Boris Johnson, I've come to the conclusion that it's actually her. Thick Lizzie was the worst Prime Minister the UK's ever known. I'll tell you a few reasons why I think so, and why she beat Bojo the make-believing clown to the top spot, just after this. Hey, sorry to interrupt me. I won't keep you long. There are 4 things that YouTube uses in its algorithms. It's whether you've liked, commented and subscribed and how long you've watched the video for. If you could do just one of those 4 things and maybe watch a little bit longer than you thought you might otherwise, it would really help. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I'm sure Liz Truss needs no introduction, but I do get a surprising number of viewers from outside the UK, and I shudder to think what our right-wing press leaks out about Thick Lizzie. They probably talk about her as if she's some sort of competent politician, rather than the farcical idiot who was told to shut up and sit in the corner after less than 50 days in office. She moved all over the place as a child and attended many different schools, but when asked about one in particular in 2022, Roundhay School in Leeds, she told blatant lies to the interviewer and said it was a bad school that had failed her and other pupils. Other pupils and past teachers didn't agree and came forward to confirm that she was talking bollocks. Good start there, Lizzie. She's got a slightly more interest in history than some though. She was elected as the MP for South West Norfolk in 2010, but she'd been involved in politics for quite a while before that. Just not politics that she wants you to know about. During the time at university, Liz campaigned for the Liberal Democrats and was a member of the Oxford Reform Club. She managed to become president of the Oxford University Liberal Democrats in her first year and was a member of the National Executive Committee of Liberal Democrat Youth and Students. Apparently, Paddy Ashdown described her as an utterly fearless debater after she made her feelings public about abolishing the monarchy and legalising cannabis. Unfortunately, something terrible, sad and probably disturbing must have happened to her, though, in 1996, as she suddenly started saying that she thought the Conservative Party was saying sane and sensible things. In 1996. And by the end of the year, she'd left the Liberal Democrats. I've got nothing against people changing parties. I mean, people change and so do their opinions. It's a little bit suspicious when it's someone like Liz Truss, though. A sudden interest in the party that is obsessed with lobbying and corruption on behalf of massive international companies was obviously nothing to do with her getting a job for Shell Oil, though. Obviously. Just to go a little further with the evidence of hypocrisy, though, Liz was an ardent Remainer in 2016 before the ill-fated Brexit farce of a referendum that David Cameron spewed onto the nation. Maybe he should have tried a bit harder to get people a bit more credible than Liz Truss on side, and he might not have ended up being the first of 5 Prime Ministers in a row to resign in disgrace. But that's not the point here. Lizzie came out with a few statements in support of Remain, like these. I'm backing Remain as I believe it is in Britain's economic interest and means we can focus on vital economic and social reform at home. She said that one on Twitter. Or this one. What I would say, on behalf of all farmers, is that the EU and the single market have brought about massive benefits for food and farming, and they would be a real risk to the future livelihood of those industries if we were to leave. Well, she was actually right there, wasn't she? Maybe she's not as fucking thick as she appears. Although I doubt it, because after the referendum in 2017, early 2017, she said, "I made a judgment thinking that Brexit would be bad for the economy, but since we've left, it's been more positive. So the facts have changed, and I've changed my mind. I believe there would be major economic problems, but those haven't come to pass, and I've seen the opportunities." Well, this would possibly be a more valid statement if it wasn't for the fact that in 2017 absolutely nothing at all had changed, and there'd been no impact whatsoever from Brexit. So I'm not sure what opportunities she was talking about, but I think she was talking absolute shite. What a shocker. I think my favourite was when she was questioned by LBC's Eddie Mair about it though. He asked, "What about people who change their minds on Brexit?" To which Lizzie arrogantly replied, "Well, I don't think people have changed their minds on Brexit." So he said, "Well, you have." After an awkward and panicked response, she sort of stuttered, "Oh, I have, that's true." I'd imagine the pause was how long it took for her to decide whether this was one of those things that she could just blatantly lie about and pretend hadn't happened, or whether she was going to actually have to admit it. And then she probably considered how many bits there is of it on the internet brimming with enthusiasm for Remain, and decided she couldn't get away with it after all. You could almost hear the wheels grinding. Horrible cow. Now, Lizzie isn't exactly a great orator. She's been relentlessly memed for her pork markets in China comment, or her exaggerated "that is a disgrace" comment about cheese imports. But I think she's a disgrace, and I think her party is a disgrace. The fact that the Conservative Party members voted for a daft cow like her because they couldn't bear the thought of a brown person being Prime Minister is a disgrace, and it's blatantly obvious too. The fact that Lizzie is an utterly charmless cretin with no idea of public opinion or common decency came on quite early during some of the pathetically unwatchable debates she did against Sunak in the leadership contest. Debates that were mostly designed to demonstrate who would be the most spiteful reactionary populist about immigration, and who might be more likely to retain Dickensian levels of poverty to northern children. Got to play to the audience, haven't you? The biggest gaffe, in my opinion though, was when she was asked about the UK's relationship with France. You know, the country that we have a long and close history with, who thousands of British people died to help liberate during World War II. Yeah. She was asked about our relationship with France, and whether she thought Emmanuel Macron was our friend or foe. And she said, "Well, the jury is still out." Thicker than a bowl of dry porridge or what? In contrast, when he was asked a similar question, Emmanuel Macron said immediately, "France is a friend and an ally to Britain and the British people." That was all she had to say. All she had to say was, the UK is and always will be an ally to France and the French people, or something like that. That's all she had to say, but she was too fucking stupid. And she was the Prime Minister. Jesus Christ almighty. And to the people in France, I know a lot of you aren't keen on Emmanuel Macron, and I understand why. But imagine having Liz Truss as your leader. Fuck's sake. Here we go. Liz has been around for a while, and she was there during the time when Ian Duncan Smith reformed the welfare system into the punitive and cruel mockery of the social net it was first intended to be. So she's done quite a lot of nasty voting in her time, but I'll try and keep it short. She's voted against paying higher benefits to disabled people 14 times. That's 14 times she's looked at people with cerebral palsy or COPD or people with missing limbs or people in wheelchairs, and she thought the best way to help those people would be to deliberately try to make them poorer. Lovely. She's placed 7 votes against laws to promote equality and human rights, though she's consistently voted for LGBT rights. Funny that. Oh, and she really hates poor people. She looks at people who've got absolutely nothing and genuinely thinks, well, If we make life a bit harder for them, they'll pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And that's being kind. What she probably thinks when she looks at people on benefits or disabled people is, fuck you, Untermenschen, die. Yeah, I might have got a bit carried away there, but honestly, that's probably the type of thing we could expect if she ever got back into office. It's not Tory policy yet. Liz Truss began her time as Prime Minister by claiming that she would usher in a new era for Britain. Well, she certainly did that, but not quite in the way she'd intended. Anybody who had paid any attention to the rambling, hyper-capitalist bullshit she'd written in books that she'd contributed to in her younger years should have known that she was a genuinely crazy person. But apparently, the Conservative Party were either too stupid to see the warning signs or just ignored them. Truss announced what she called radical, but any normal, sane person called batshit insane economic policies within a few days. In true dishonest, despicable Tory fashion, she teamed up with Kwasi Kwarteng, who she'd made Chancellor, and planned the biggest tax cuts in 50 years, but kept insisting that it was just a mini-budget so that she could avoid scrutiny from watchdogs who are put in place specifically to prevent people like her doing things like that. Now, I'm not one for going into the financial side of things much. I understand most of it, but it's quite boring, isn't it? And it's not really my area of expertise. But suffice to say that practically every person in the country saw an increase in their mortgage and an increase in their living costs because of Liz Truss. And all this was against the backdrop of a country already struggling with the worst cost of living crisis in a century. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion living in the UK, isn't it? Only Rees-Mogg is in the driving seat and he's just insisting that if we go faster we can break through the wall and get back to sovereignty. And Liz Truss has climbed onto the bonnet and poked a hole in it. She's pouring burning fucking petrol through the hole onto the engine. And Boris Johnson's in the back seat and he's pissed himself for the laugh. Good Lord. So there you go. What an absolute tit of a woman she is. And we allowed her to hold the highest office in the land. I mean, true, she only held it for 49 days, but still. In answer to the question I posed in the intro, I think she was the worst Prime Minister ever because she was actually trying to be good, but was just too self-obsessed, too fucking stupid, too arrogant, and too downright bloody incompetent to do a decent job of it. Johnson was the worst person who was ever Prime Minister. Because compared to that saggy, fetid, dishonest, disgraced and disgraceful lump of arse chunder, Liz Truss probably isn't that bad. But he didn't really want to be a good Prime Minister, he just wanted to be Prime Minister. He always intended to treat it as a wizard wheeze, old chaps, carpe diem, piffle, paffle, puffle, brrr, and all that. He never actually took it seriously, he just thought it'd be good fun and good for his ego, didn't he? But she was taking it quite seriously. She was trying to be a good Prime Minister, and yet she was still absolutely, utterly shit. She caused the worst financial crash since 2008. She fucked up everybody's finances and chances of getting on the housing ladder for a lot of people as well. Cost the country so much money that the damn Tories are still refusing to release the full details of it. Offended the whole of France. and called the Irish Prime Minister T-Sock. Fucking daft bitch. So in my eyes, she was the worst Prime Minister. Not much worse. I mean, obviously, she's only a slightly less obnoxious Tory twat than Johnson. But she's a little bit less of an obnoxious Tory twat than Johnson. But she's still the worst Prime Minister we ever had. And I'll stand by that. Thank you for watching if you've got this far. The subs are climbing nicely, and I am actually starting to feel like maybe I could make just a tiny bit of difference when the general election gets called, the way things are going. Anyway, if you've had a giggle with me at Thick Lizzie, then please do click the subscribe button if you haven't done already. It does help the channel loads, and it's free of charge. Having said that, there's links to Patreon, PayPal, and the Buy Me a Coffee page in the description box below if you do want to help the channel grow. And as always, there will be a link to Thick Lizzie's voting record down there. Liz Truss is still out there now, trying to pretend none of it happened, and there are still utter cockwombles trying to claim she's some sort of political genius that wasn't given chance to spread her wings. Here's a suggestion for you, Liz, if you want to spread your wings. Spread them, get in the air, and fuck off, you pointless, dozy mare. If anything, Liz's latest bullshit and her popcorn meeting thing only served to make it far more obvious that she won't be holding up the clock on the countdown to power. I got all the way through a video about Liz Truss and I never mentioned lettuces once. Not even once. And I never told everybody that I always think she looks like her breath stinks. Yeah. She does though, doesn't she? Wouldn't want to be downwind of a yawn from that, would you?